Talons of Travel. The Outcasts. The Prophecy. Turn your attention to the new dark upon you, and watch your back all around you, for the new dark is ready for capture, until a new team of dragnets come to your rescue. Prologue. Around 5016 AS. Serval's wings beat as fast as she could handle, the scolding sun beating down on her scales. The dunes seemed to shimmer in the bright rays of light, and creatures ran at the sight of the dragon's flying shadow. Serval was in big trouble, but she had something to keep safe. It was an egg. Her egg. She had no pouch to carry it in. It was almost too big, almost 12 moons old. Her arms and wings screamed in protest, sore and aching with much-needed rest. The sun seemed to mock her, for it seemed like it was the hottest for just that day in the desert. Behind her, there were 3 sandwing guards, chasing her with spears and talon, expressions of a thirst for blood on their smug, ragged, and yellow-to-gray snouts. It was terrifying for Serval to think that they wanted to kill her, along with a helpless dragonette, not even aware of the world around it. Serval loved Queen Thorn's brother, Bone. He was a handsome, confident, and goofy dragon that Serval thought she was good friends with. She later bared an egg, and knew that it was his because she had no partner. She had kept it a secret for so long, until she laid the egg and she had to go into hiding. Serval suspected that he was being held against his will to tell Thorn where she was. But why would he tell her this happened? She wondered for the longest time. Eventually, she was found in her cave by a search party with the soon-to-be-hatched egg, and was now being chased by these soldiers. Apparently, they were sent out to kill her with the egg as well. Why else would they have the look of murder and have pointy, killing spears? Thorn definitely did not just send them for her to be captured and thrown into jail. Queen Thorn was clearly angry, and she wanted revenge. But Serval had a plan. She wanted this dragonette, and luckily, the guards did not know as much as she did. Much farther away from the palace was a town where they had trapdoor basements underground inside their huts. This was because of their frequent sandstorms that hit their towns pretty hard. But over in the palace's area, there were very few sandstorms. Serval was almost there. She could see the town's huts just ahead. She tipped her wings downward, almost letting the egg slip through her claws. Wait, why won't I just let go of the egg? I could just get out of this mess and be done with it. But she tried to shake the thought out of her head because she knew she had hope deep down. Diving down in the town, she heard murmurs of the tired guards. Looking behind her, the 2 guards looked faint and annoyed, but the one in the middle was determined and older looking. Who was that dragon? He looks familiar. She dove into the crowded part of town in hopes to lose the guards in all the commotion. She braced herself, holding tight to her precious cargo. She landed with a stumble, running into an empty hut. Hurriedly, Serval threw open the trapdoor and hopped inside with the egg. The trapdoor looked just like the flooring of the hut, so she knew she would be safely hidden. However, she heard booming voices outside the door, shuffling talons, and screams. Faintly, she heard an older, scarier dragon bellow.
"Where is she? You can't hide, you helpless lizard!"
Chuckles came from the 2 other dragons. She guessed that they were the guards. The front door to the hut burst open, making Serval jump. She clutched the egg harder as 3 pairs of talons shuffled in. Things were knocked over, and they were murmuring things to each other.
General Bronze, I don't think she would be in here. There's nowhere to hide. We just trashed another dragon's home.
The first guard complained in a somewhat worried tone.
"It doesn't matter, Kit. She is a criminal to the royal Sandwing family. And we serve that family, don't we?
The second guard said. He sounded mean and stern. Each word made Serval flinch.
Mamba's right, kid. Listen to a dragon who's older and wiser than you.
He chuckled in a snarky tone. That must be General Bronze, then. He was the dragon who trained her for a special fighting class in school. He was mean, ugly, torn up and scarred. He never seemed to like her. And now, he would get the revenge he wanted. Serval shuffled uneasily, trying not to make too much noise in the small basement. It was probably built for about 3 adult dragons and a dragonette, which meant it didn't leave much room for the abnormally large egg and herself. She picked up on the sound of Talons storming out of the hut and a slammed door. Serval breathed easy. She didn't realize how long she'd held her eyes shut tight, but when she opened them to her dark surroundings, she could see a faint outline of a dragonette wiggling around inside the amber gold egg. She reached for the top half of some bone left on the dirt floor, probably an old eaten animal. She could use this as a disguise to get around in her new town. But she waited to fit it on her head because it needed to be cleaned. And she wanted her dragonette to see her face before she became a hidden criminal. As she waited, she thought about the town she most likely disturbed. She felt terrible, but it was life or death for her, not the whole town. Serval claimed the hut as her own. It seemed as if it was deserted anyways. Serval snapped out of her thoughts as the egg on her lap started to rustle violently, cracks splitting the egg in all directions. Serval placed the egg on the ground in front of her gently, as the top popped off and a small, freckled, black-eyed dragonette stared at her. "Oh, hello," she said in a calm voice. "I will call you Quail." Prickly Pear sat on top of a tall town building, watching the dragon shuffle around down below, trying to get their best stills in the hot desert sun. It was loud and humid and a perfect day for stealing. Prickly Pear wanted to take some fruit today, waiting for the best time to strike. The vendor's name was Agave. He was quite oblivious for a sandwing vendor in the toughest part of town. Prickly Pear's strange emerald green eyes watched until Agave turned his back, answering a question from a lost dragon, she assumed. She was about to leap off the building, wings outstretched, until he stopped talking to her perfect distraction. Great! Now I'll have to wait until he looks away again, which will take forever, she thought with an annoyed huff. He seemed to be more alert today, which made sense because of the crowds. Prickly Pear leapt off the building and flew to her hut. She knew that her mother had a hood of some sort to hide her face. However, asking her mother of things was risky. She was quite the grumpy dragon now that she was older with a 7-year-old dragonette still living with her. She didn't quite understand why she was like this, because her brother always told stories of how great and fun she was. Well, until she had me. Walking in, she saw her brother mixing something in a wooden bowl. "Hey, Quail, what you up to?" she asked him, but he didn't seem in the mood to answer. He never seemed in the mood to answer anyway.
What have you been up to? Trying to steal from poor Agave again?"
He chuckled. Prickly Pear shuffled nervously. Yeah, actually. I need some more fruit to, eat. Where's Serval?" Prickly Pear asked him. Their mother didn't want them to call her mother anymore. She said that they were too old to be calling her that.
Well, she's in her office. I think she's planning her route for the shipper dragon to follow. She's got a new order,"
he said, turning back to the bowl, mashing what looked to be greens and meat with a stone pestle. Prickly Pear walked quietly to the doorway of her mother's office, not wanting to disturb her. She waited to be called. It took a minute for Serval to notice her own daughter standing there. "Hello, Prickle. What do you need from me?" she answered in a snappy yet calmish voice. "Oh, I was wondering if you had a hood or disguise of some sort to cover my face, Prickly Pear asked anxiously. Her mother didn't seem so annoyed anymore, her frown fading to a smile. She looked a bit interested. You actually want to steal something? Wow, my little prickle is growing up. She laughed. Serval seemed to read Prickly Pear's mind. Well, yes, but I need a disguise, Mother. I mean, Serval. Serval nodded, ignoring Prickly Pear's mistake, surprisingly, and pulled something out from underneath her table, handing it to Prickly Pear. Here is my skull mask. Don't break it or ruin it. Got that? She said sternly. Prickly Pear nodded, hurrying out of the hut. Before stepping out, she fit the skull to her head. The mask was a little uncomfortable and big. Her mother was much larger than she was. Trying her best to fit her nose horn through the hole in the front, she flew up to the same roof that she was on top of before. She stared at Agave, waiting for her moment once more. Without hesitation, Prickly Pear made sure that her pouch was on tight, and she flew down in a hurry. She reached out her talons, snatching as much of the fruit as she needed for her own study. She placed them in her pouch, talonful by talonful. No sandwing seemed to care that she was stealing. Seems to be quite common, huh? She latched her pouch, the pouch heavy with pounds of fruit inside it. Like the pouch would burst and blow her cover. Just before Agave had finished organizing on the other side of his tent, Prickly Pear flew off to her hut. Agave had the look of confusion, looking at the basket she had took from. His puzzled face and his talons on his head made Prickly Pear giggle. He seemed to be saying things to himself in panic. Guess he hasn't been stolen from before. In Prickly Pear's room, she dumped out all of her new fruit she stole. She had a keep and store pile. She kept some for study and some for the kitchen storage barrel. In her room, she had all of the fruit behind her scroll case, in a tinier barrel she had found. Serval never really came into the rooms anyway, only ever to wake them up at sunrise on occasion. She put the store pile fruit in her pouch, walking over to her mother's office to show her all of the fruit she stole. Very nice, Prickly Pear. Please, put it in the storage barrel. Prickly Pear beamed. She rarely heard her mother call her by her full name. She only ever did when she was proud of her, which was also a rare case. In the kitchen, Prickly Pear was brought by surprise. Quail made dinner from herbs and meat, from scratch. How did you do this, Quail? Prickly Pear said with an amazed expression, dumping the fruit into the barrel and closing the lid. Quail shuffled his feet. I learned from this dragon in the alley. It only cost me my special shell necklace. Pretty cool, huh? Cooking lessons for the price of a necklace, he said in an excited tone, his wings unfolding. Wait, my necklace that I made him? The shell necklace? She felt awful. Her own brother gave away her gift to him. For cooking lessons! Moon's sake, At least I can make dinner for us now. Sorry about the necklace, I guess. Paul finished. Prickly Pear didn't even realize that she had tears on her cheeks. She'd made him feel bad for once. Quail seemed to look at her with a face that said, Why are you crying? Well, that's an emotion I've never seen from him before. Guilt. I bet it's been like 500 years. Prickly Pear rubbed her eyes so that she didn't look like she'd just been crying about a necklace. Weakness was something never to be shown in front of their mother. She called for Serval to come eat. She actually gave Quail a hug. And all Prickly Pear was left with was the food that was prepared and a mother that forgot that she had 2 children.